a Year 4 medical student.
Hi, I'm Zach. I'm a Year 2 medical student.
Hello, my name is Caitlin. I'm a third year medical student. Okay, so what is your favorite part about being a medical student? I think I would say it's knowing that what you are studying now will actually be able to make things better for someone in the future. I think as a student, prior to university especially, I would wonder what's the utility of the things that I'm studying, does it really matter, how hydrogen bonds to carbon? It doesn't make sense to me that this is important, but in medical school, I feel like what I've been studying is really necessary, for the job in the future. And learning what we learn today is necessary to help someone tomorrow.
I think my favorite part of being a medical student is just being constantly challenged in so many different ways, intellectually, physically, and even emotionally. You encounter people at the most extremes of circumstances and emotions as well. And having the privilege to be present and also to have a change of perspective sometimes when you learn from these patients is something that I really appreciate about being a student as well.
I think, first of all, is that we get to learn amazing clinical sciences. There are just so many intricate parts of the body that is so complex and yet so beautiful to study. From the get-go in year 1, we start studying from the upper limb to how the nerves run through our body to the blood vessels, and it's just an amazing way to learn about how your body is made and how it functions. And in year 1, we will have this thing called PBP, which is attachment with the various medical departments. And I was attached in the emergency department, and I remember there was this one foreign worker who had an amputation of his thumb, and we will actually watch him through the few weeks, how he goes through the hospital system and how he goes through rehabilitation. And I thought that was an amazing process. So I think to see all these recovery processes as a medical student is an amazing experience. And I don't think we really get to see that anywhere else except in other healthcare courses.
So in contrast, what is your biggest challenge in being a medical student? Wow. I think one of the challenges that I feel I experience as a medical student is sometimes constantly feeling that you're not good enough. I remember during my emergency department posting earlier this year, I failed to draw blood from this old uncle twice, and I felt so bad about it. I was almost in tears. But I think what touched me was that the uncle really held my hand and told me that, girl, if you don't try again, if you don't practice, how are you going to learn? Yeah, and I think he told me to try again, don't worry about him, just do what I need to do. And I think it's patients like these that really motivate me and make me more determined to want to take each opportunity seriously and not let them down again.
Sometimes there's just so many things to do. One opportunity comes after the other, and sometimes you want to just do everything. But you also have to know that your academics and your curriculum are the top priority, and you need to know how to balance that. But I remember being in year 1 and really just being so amazed by everything and wanting to do the arts and the sports, and because we are only a student once, so I would want to take the opportunity to try everything. But at the same time, now being in year 2, I realized that we also have to manage our time and manage what's on our plate so that we can give the best of ourselves to every single opportunity.
I think the hardest part about being a medical student right now is that we don't know enough, especially because, in the clinical years, which is where I am now, you are put in situations where you see patients who are suffering, who are not sure what's happening to them. And sometimes, because of your inexperience, you're not really equipped to support them when they could use some support. So I remember my first clinical posting last year in June. There was this auntie who was in heart failure, and I spoke to her on a Tuesday and she was doing fine. Wednesday she was smiling, I thought she was going to go home. But then Thursday she suddenly decompensated and the doctors were all rushing around her bed, and her daughter came in and she was very anxious. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't explain to the daughter what happened to her mother because I didn't know it myself. And I felt very helpless at that point in time. And in the end, the auntie did pass away. So, it's moments like these that are not really easy to take in because you're right there where someone is suffering, but you don't always know what to do about it, even though it's happening right in front of you.
Have you ever doubted your decision to study at NUS Medicine? I think that's quite a relevant question. I think everyone has small little doubts because I think when we see other students pursuing courses like languages or like having really diverse modules, it can be a bit, we might crave for that. But at the same time, when we go into the wards and see our patients get better or see how patients improve over time, that's a very inspiring and motivating experience that it trumps everything else. And I think I'm really happy that I get to spend my student years seeing that process and learning to be a better doctor and learning to help people in the future also.
Yes. I think I had my doubts, especially in M1 and M2, because back when I was year 1 and year 2, the content that we learn is very theoretical. We study the basic sciences, and I wasn't really seeing a lot of... There was some patient interaction at that point in time, but I felt like majority of the time was still, in lectures and reading textbooks. So I felt a little bit distant, and at the same time I was also enrolled as a non-graduating student in the school's University Scholars Program, which is like an interdisciplinary college where we take classes. As I was taking these classes outside of my medical curriculum, but also studying so much content in medicine, I was wondering whether I was fitting in medical school. At the end of year 2, I took a gap year. It was a sponsored program to the US to study the liberal arts. And when I was there, I took classes in medical anthropology, medical writing, public health, and I had a great time. But interestingly enough, I very much missed being able to say that I was a medical student when I was there. Because when I was there, I was like, oh, I'm sort of a medical student, but I'm kind of on a gap year now, so I don't really know what that makes me. And coming back to NUS Med after that 1 year I spent away, I was glad that I had made this decision to be a medical student when I was 19 years old. I realized that this is really what I wanted to do.
I think no. Yeah. I think at the start, maybe I was a bit hesitant, but once I chose NUS Med, I never looked back. And I think NUS has not disappointed. I really gained more than what I could imagine from the start. Living on campus, joining CCAs in NUS, and finding so many friends and making so many new relationships in NUS as well. Something that I really appreciate.
What was your reason for applying to NUS Med? Okay. It wasn't my reason for applying, but I definitely was very drawn to the fact that the scrubs were this color. Even wearing them now, I'm like, yeah, this is a good color, But I think why I applied was because of both, I think three broad reasons. The first one was NUS Med's curriculum. Second one was NUS Med's non-curricular scene. And the last one was that NUS Med is part of NUS. So in terms of the curriculum, what really drew me to our school was the anatomy program. We're very fortunate to have access to silent mentors, which is what our school uses to refer to people who donate their body to medicine. So I remember in M1 when I was learning anatomy, we would always make trips down to the anatomy hall. And at the end of M1, I opted to take a dissection elective where I was working on dissecting a body for about 6 weeks. And I learned a lot from that, both in terms of anatomy itself, but also just appreciating the sacrifices that went into our learning. I was also fortunate to meet my silent mentor's family at her cremation ceremony, and that was something very special.
I think primarily it was firstly the education style. I think NUS Med is known to be having a very strong lecture system, and there's a lot of strong content that we learn. And just personally, I find that having good lecturers is very important to my learning. The lecturers in NUS Medicine are honestly one of the best. They really take time to explain to you, and they make really good notes in their PowerPoints. Beyond that, there's also very professional labs. I really enjoyed my year 1 histology labs and my anatomy halls because they are just opportunities that other faculties or other schools may not get to experience, and I'm just so thankful that I'm able to do that in NUS Medicine. And lastly, I really enjoy the team-based learning. I remember like in medical, in year 1, we would have this thing called collaborative learning cases, and we would attend classes together in groups of 10 to, or like within our clinical groups, and we would discuss clinical problems together, and it will unfold slowly like a mystery, and it's really exhilarating to be part of that process. And the professors and teaching staff are very helpful, and even if you may not know all your content, they are there to clarify and guide you through the steps. So I think the teaching style in NUS Medicine is one of the main reasons that I wanted to apply here also.
When I was applying for uni, I was offered a few options. But I think what were the pull factors for me for NUS were mainly 2 reasons. Firstly was the legacy of NUS as the first medical school in Singapore, and secondly was the vibrant campus life in NUS. And I think campus life was a huge part for me to join NUS as well, because actually back in Sec 2, I was very inspired when Dr. Tan Lai Yong came down to our school to give an assembly talk about the good works he's done in Yunnan, as well as the projects he was doing in the College of Alice and Peter Tan in NUS, which is a residential college. So since then, I already was hoping to apply for this residential college, and it really didn't disappoint. I think during my time in CAPT, it provided opportunities for me to interact with parts of society that we don't usually see or even talk about. For example, like the migrant workers community or the homeless in Singapore. And I think I really appreciated those opportunities to see different parts of society and also to gain new perspectives.